Speaking of Noah, I wanted to just quickly thank Noah for putting this together. This event wouldn't happen without his hard work. So Noah has been with us for over a year, and he's the assistant director, and he's done a phenomenal job of organizing everything and getting us heading in the right direction. So thank you. So just to briefly go back a minute and think about why we're celebrating, what we're doing here, and why this exhibition is so unique. Not to get too far ahead of myself, but the art world in the 20th century was extremely harsh to realism. And so to have kind of the foresight or the imagination to continue to pursue something that most of the culture doesn't believe in anymore is extraordinarily rare. And so in this room we have two artists who are extremely influential, and that's the late Nelson Shanks and late Richard Schmid, and they were both born in the 30s. And so they went through one of the most difficult times to be a representational artist. And so when you look around the room, there's a bunch of interconnecting stories that I was thinking about as a student, and thinking about how we could put these together in one place. And that brings me to celebrating not only this, but also the Barlettas. This evening they are in London celebrating their 27th wedding anniversary. So this collection, as you know, would not exist without them. The building is special to them because Vincent's father purchased it in the 90s. A little bit of history of the building. It was built in 1870. It was used in conjunction with the academy. They taught some classes on the first floor, I believe, and it was also a boarding house for some students. And anyone can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But Vincent's father bought it for the family, thinking that they could do something special for the area. And it's Vin's kind of honor and joy to make this accessible for people. So they are in London celebrating their 27th anniversary, and they got married down the street at the Congregational Church. So that is a huge reason why this is possible tonight. So thinking about the art, I want to continue to, some of you know the story, some of you don't, but I just want to quickly touch on it because of how extraordinarily unique this situation is. My relationship with the patrons, the Barlettas, and how they started collecting art. So in 2005, it was a little bit later than that, but I made a painting in 2005 that was sent out to LA, actually. It was part of the LA art show. And it was purchased by a collector in LA. And the gallery wrote me and said, you know, congratulations. I was 25 at the time. Congratulations. This painting has found a home. And I was like, that's amazing. And a couple of minutes later, I get another email, and he says, the gallery changed their mind. The collector changed their mind. They want something else. And I was like, oh, that hurts. So the painting got sent back to New York. And Laura and Ven, at the time, Ven was doing some business in New York, and Laura was walking around Soho. And the painting, because it got sent back from the LA art show, the painting of my wife was hanging in the window. And Laura walked by the painting and fell in love with it, went into the gallery, bought 3 of their first acquisitions ever, portrait of my wife, a still life, and another painting that I don't know which artist it is. And they took it home and hung it in their stairwell, and that became the start of their collection. And here we are today, again, thinking about how all these roads connect. If it wasn't for that collector changing their mind, then none of this would have happened. The other thing I want to kind of just press into quickly is I've met many people who are wealthy, and it's extremely unusual for them to support the arts in a way that the Barlettas have in New Salem. So I want to give credit to them for being extraordinary patrons to the arts, because they're extremely passionate about it, and it's part of what's happening here, not only in the building, but also the relationship that Laura and I have with how we think about beauty. So the aesthetics that are presented in this building are a key feature of being able to appreciate and understand the artwork that you see around you. So oftentimes there's a mismatch between the value of the art and the setting that it exists in. And tonight we can rest assured that it's the artwork, and the value of the artwork goes hand in hand with the institution. Now, keep in mind they're both in some ways intimate in their characteristic. So when you think of modern art and you think of the massive institutions and the massive paintings that are exhibited, it really is difficult for artists in this world to be able to actually exist in that world, because they're two totally different things. They're on two different, they're just different languages. And by Laura understanding that this art is extraordinarily valuable, it plays into kind of what we're doing here. She is they've put in a lot to represent or to share with the community something that maybe one of their friends or someone, a buyer, may not want them to invest their money in. So that's getting into kind of the setting the stage for the just exactly what you're kind of sitting in. So we're in beautiful historic New Salem, and this collection of paintings in this room, the 13 paintings that are on display, represent 3 generations of artists. And it's a good sampling of what is to come in the future as well with this institution, because when guests would come in, they would ask what my role is in the museum. And I'm very particular about saying that it's Laura's collection, it's Laura's personal taste, because she has purchased every single painting. But tonight we get to kind of behold artworks on loan, thanks to the families who have loaned this. Nelson's family is very generous to loan this painting. There was a collector of Jacob's work that sent this here, and as well as Richard Schmidt's family and the artists that own the work. So I'm extraordinarily thankful for that. It's also a different opportunity to look at work outside of the context of a gallery. This movement has been very kind of connected with commercialism, and I think that that's unfortunate, because it's a very, it's a high art form, and it's takes a different setting to really be able to come back to a painting. So the show will run 3 months. You'll have the opportunity to come and study the paintings over and over. To get in, so we'll talk a little bit longer, and then I can take some question and answer. But I wanted to kind of give respect or pay kind of credence to the fact that all of these artists are extremely, they're courageous in the sense that they are operating in the realm of beauty. So now I'm going to get in a little bit. So we've talked how this has kind of come about, the significance of the moment, and I want to talk a little bit about what exactly ties it all together. And as an artist, to actually attempt to pursue something beautiful is extraordinarily difficult, because there are many, many ways that you can sell a painting. And if you put in a flashy color, you put in a flashy brushstroke, do something to grab someone's attention, to make them want to put it on the wall, that's basically kind of all you have to do. But if you enter into the world of kind of the Western art tradition and the canon of entering into trying to speak the same language as the Renaissance and thinking about French academic painting and the competitions that took place in the 19th century, by actively allowing yourself to stand before this massive tradition, but also the thing I want to really hit on that makes this so special is standing before nature and contemplating nature in a way that allows you to, you have to humble yourself. You really do. The work, so if you think about the work in this room, whether it's portraiture or still life or landscape, when you hear those three genres, there's really nothing that extraordinary about the genre per se. But to be able to elevate it to fine art and to be able to tap into something that is extraordinary, that elevates it to another level, that's what you're witnessing here. And that I want to try to be as clear as I possibly can that is not a popular position to take. Not everyone fully understands it, and I think it's the role of institutions and museums to continue to highlight those artists who have dedicated their life to something and achieved something extraordinary. If we think about so to back up a little bit, there's only 4 that I know of, and you can correct me, but there's only 4 museums in the world that are dedicated exclusively to contemporary realism. Yeah, there's others that show contemporary realism, but they don't specialize in it. They have a wide range of art. They have contemporary art. They have oftentimes it's a blend of art. But to have a collection with such a fine focus of kind of narrowing in on excellence is, again, extremely unpopular. And I'm just so grateful that Laura and Vincent do not listen to other people's opinions. They really press on with what they believe in and what they enjoy. And so we get to be the benefactors of that and have a space that we can exhibit this kind of artwork. And it is extraordinarily unique. I just have to kind of keep stating that if we think about the connections that and the careers that are in this room, I can talk briefly. Other people could talk for hours about the individual artists and their careers, and that would be wonderful. But what I like to think about, and what I want to try to get you to enjoy about this, is that it's a living tradition. And so Nelson Shanks has painted the most famous people in the world, and he's revered throughout the world, essentially. It's just such an honor to have this painting here. It's an incredible painting, and I can't think of a better way to kind of honor his legacy and his ability than to put him in a room with people who care deeply about the same things he cared about. Same with Jacob Collins. Jacob Collins has dedicated his life to pursuing his parents were involved in aspects of the New York art world, and he grew up wanting to paint and draw classically. And again, going against the grain and pressing on and doing something that's relatively unpopular and no guarantees of any success. So you have these two that are giants in the art world. And then as we go around the room, if you have time after we get done, after we do the little question and answer, if you want, please have a look at the art, because I know this is the first for many of you coming and looking at it. Daniel Sprick has had exhibitions at the Denver Art Museum. Tim Lawson, they're all extraordinary artists in their own right, and I encourage you to read the bios that are connected to them and really think about what it is that the artists are trying to say. I want to finish by kind of just nerding out a little bit, because I know that there are some artists in the room, and I want to talk a little bit about the art side of it. So particularly me, so I have two paintings in this exhibition. One was from when I was younger, 2010-ish, and the other one was recently from this last year, and you can see a little bit of difference in the technique. And when I was a student, my major influences were Jacob, Nelson, and Richard Schmid. And the reason for that was because they all had differences of seeing nature through their lens, through their kind of what we get to experience when we look at art is we get to see what the artist was seeing. It's literally like a notebook. It's their personal revelations that are being put down on canvas and left for us to study and share. So with Nelson, he is a master of the human figure in many ways, and the way that the figure is, the way it operates. It's a very it's an extremely complicated organism, and you can go wrong on so many different levels. And he is a master at being able to interpret the figure in art, and that was a huge influence. And it was something that when you start looking around and seeing what people are doing, he was definitely at the top. And also adding into that is his interpretation of color. Color is a fascination of his, And it was by joining the new and the old that was the new, fresh experience. And that's the beautiful thing about this, is it's a continuing of an incredible art form, is that the art form actually has not gone away. It's just not been given the proper stage to show itself. Individually, each career has, so they're very extraordinarily successful, but this is, again, the first brick and mortar where you can go and see a Nelson Shanks next to a Jacob Collins, next to a Daniel Sprick. This is the first of its kind in the United States, of a coming together of these incredible careers. Richard Schmid was extremely influential. If you look at his waterfall, he, the first time I saw him mix color on the palette, the way he would dance around the canvas and the way he would apply paint was breathtaking, and that was a huge influence on me. And Jacob was my mentor, and so I learned not only the ways in which he thinks about nature, but also I had the opportunity to watch him conduct himself as a professional artist and put on exhibitions. Daniel Sprick, that's a beautiful painting of a gentleman who actually lived to be, I think, 103. And when he painted him, he was 98. And that yellow color in the background, he did a series of paintings that were actually the moment of when you see the light at the end of your life, and it's that shining bright light that everyone describes. That's what that painting is about. So it's he influenced me in ways that were just a really deep, kind of profound beauty that was almost dark in a way. That was, but yet so sensitive and so delicate. He's a rare combination of that. So those were the artists in this collection that were huge influences on me. The artists that were of my generation are Travis Schlott, Jeffrey Larson to a certain extent. He's a little bit older than me, but I was a teenager watching him sell out exhibitions and really looked up to him. Jeremy Lipking, who's on the back wall, and Mark DeLacio. So they're just a scattering. Again, later on you can look at the art closely, and this big painting in the center is Tim Lawson. Tim was more of an influence on my life later on, and so he is just an incredible designer and storyteller with his depictions of how to balance a painting and also color harmony as well. That's his color is extraordinarily subtle. So that's a little bit. I don't want to go on and bore you, but that's kind of everything that's happening here. It's kind of hard to put in words because I'm a painter. I'm not a public speaker. But I am happy and honored to share with you guys this grouping of paintings, and I think that it's just a sampling of what is to come in this museum. We have set for the future. Next year we have a competition that we're going to be hosting where we're doing an acquisition award, and we're going to be hanging those paintings throughout the entire building. And our hope is to cultivate the highest bar that we possibly can, and to continue to push artists in the direction that holds this group of artists together. So that's my goal as a director. I can't speak entirely for Laura. I know that she has her own vision of what she would like to share, but we do see eye to eye on a lot of stuff. So yeah, I just thank you for coming out and celebrating this evening with me. and I hope that there was something in that little presentation that was of interest for you all. So. All right, questions? I know Noah's got a question.
Number one,
yes.
thank you for hosting this.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Speaking on behalf of the owners, it's our pleasure. Yeah, I feel such a great honor to be able to just be a part of this and to open the doors to everybody, and yeah, it's so wonderful. Yeah.
It says here that some of the artists are students of yours.
They're not students. They are admirers of mine, so I view them as colleagues, and I hold them very high in esteem. And so Alex Venezia and Rachel Lee painted the painting on the back wall. And there's a few artists present this evening, but I won't point anyone out. But they are carrying kind of the
Torch.
yeah, I don't want to say torch necessarily, but they are carrying the baton on the next leg of the race, and we gladly hand it to them, and we cheer them on because they're incredibly talented. And thank you for reminding me to mention. That's the third aspect of the show is this incredible art that's coming from the next generation. And that's the future of this institution. So, any other questions? Yeah.
Is there any way to quantify how much time it would take you to do like your self-portrait?
Well, every artist is different, and everyone works at different speeds. So, and whether it's fast or slow, I think that is kind of secondary to kind of what ends up being created. I always tell students that the world only gets to see the top part of the painting. Very rarely do they see what's underneath. And so, you know, if we go based off of that painting, you know, it really only took me 2 sessions, I think. But the second session transformed it pretty significantly. So that's what you see.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. Mm-hmm.
Was that done with mirrors, or was it done by photograph?
So good question. So the way that I wanted to do that was, I teach a lot online, and I had a camera on my face, and so they could watch me turn and observe myself, and then go back to the painting and put down the stroke. So every time I would go back to that position, it was the position that they were seeing. And it gave me the opportunity to try to get kind of inside of what the artist is looking at. You could do that with 2 mirrors. If you wanted to set up 2 mirrors, there's a similar thing where you can look at yourself in that way through 2 mirrors. But yeah, I did it through video. So it was a live demonstration through video.
Very nice, thank you.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little more about why realism became unpopular, if I'm understanding correctly?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can touch on it quickly. It was somewhat connected to the World Wars, and it was somewhat connected to the invention of photography. So once photography became very popular, the artist's job became less and less relevant because you could get a photograph taken. But I always remind people that throughout the 19th century, it was all black and white photography. So the artist still kind of held a very high position. So it wasn't until the World Wars and modern art that things started to keep going less and less further and further in a direction away from kind of a sensitive rendering of nature. They thought it was kind of fluffy, and they were going for something bold and something more direct and more of our time, I guess. I'm not an art historian. I don't think about 20th century art a lot, but basically they wanted to feel relevant, and trends come and go. I mean, that's also what you're kind of experiencing, is that there's a whole new generation of younger artists that are pursuing realism because it's fascinating for them, and they're far removed from any kind of politics. But there was a period in the 20th century that was very connected to criticizing something and saying that it was a lesser art form is extraordinarily unpopular even in our time. To say that something actually should be appreciated based off the skill is still unpopular. But I mean, it's the art world is a big place, and there's big institutions and a lot of money that supports that kind of art. So that's my kind of, positive outlook on what's happening here, is that there is just nothing like this. And so when you have artists who've painted presidents and the Pope, and you need to have a public institution that represents that. You need to. It's just part of art history. And if it's not documented, then it could potentially be forgotten. And so it's extraordinarily important to weave it all in and have a representation for it. So, yes.
As a student of kind of the modern art, modern representational art movement, we can kind of gauge the standard through kind of online means.
Mm-hmm.
And my question is, between kind of like these past generations, how do they maintain a standard or know what the standard is when they're like, I know Jeff lives like in Minnesota, right? And Austin is kind of like rural PA, like they didn't have that to consult. I mean, it's kind of a big question, but.
Well, I think there's a couple things that artists who are working in this methodology can identify with, and one is the language, and then the other is the poetry. So they're kind of they're two pillars that are extraordinarily important. And so the language, if I just separate out, if I forget the fact that that's a violin, I can go on and on about the quality of the paint and the colors. And if I forget that that's a portrait, even though that's hard to do, you can go on and on about the textures and so there's that technical language that holds it together. I remember when I was just kind of, I'm from the Midwest, and so when I came out and I started discovering artwork in museums and kind of being opened up to the world, I felt like there was whispers to me in the paintings, and it's the only way that I can kind of accurately describe it, that my family, my older brothers, they don't have that experience. They don't have that conversation if they walk through the Metropolitan Museum. They don't have those conversations that I'm having with those artists. And it's because I'm a practitioner of that craft, that is a language that I'm speaking quietly with them. And then there's the poetry aspect of it, and I don't know if I touched on it enough, but it's the vulnerability of the artist. I used to say that your entire life's work and your soul and everything that you are as a person is kind of embedded in a few millimeters of a film of paint for the world to judge after you go on. And I know that's a large, thing to bear, but it's actually true. It's like, that's why artists are kind of a little bit crazy, is because like so much of what you're putting down is this open notebook for the world to criticize or to engage with, and it's very intimate and vulnerable because you can fail so easily, and so I think that the commonality is that the language and the passion that people bring to this art form that holds it together with not only other regions, other areas of the world, but other time periods too. It's, so. Mm-hmm.
You said there were 4 museums who were dedicated to
Yeah.
contemporary
Mm-hmm.
realism.
Yep.
What are they?
So well, there's Meme in Barcelona. There's a new one in Spain. So there's 2 in Spain, one in Tokyo, and this one. There's others that have great collections, but they also have a broader collection. There's a museum in Wisconsin, I believe, that's slightly different because it's all artwork on loan. So it's almost like a museum/gallery. Where what makes this collection so special is that the Barlettas have really invested in the work, and it's owned by the family. So, yeah. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Could you talk more as a painter about the portrait behind
The Shanks.
Yeah.
I can attempt to. What would you like to know?
I'm not a painter, so
Yeah,
I
okay.
can't differentiate
Yeah.
things all
Yeah,
the time.
sure.
So I'm interested in how you differentiate them.
Well, so one of the things that is a big kind of, there's a big kind of chasm, I guess, in the art world of people who work from life and people who work from photography. And Nelson was a practitioner of working from life, so that's part of it. And what that opens you up to is a world of sensitivity that is not available through the camera. So we're experiencing his experience directly from his vision and from his soul, right? So it's this collaboration of this infinitely complex. There's a thematic quality to it, but I also think that that's a reason to get into all the subtleties that he really wants to explore. And I'm not Nelson, so I can't speak to it adequately, but as artists, that fascination of how paint moves and works and how that relates to the world. And so what I'm experiencing when I look at that is just it gives me a window into his mind of what he was actually understanding. And that's the really neat thing about the conversation that ends up happening, is that it's not a game of guessing. It's actually a very intellectual pursuit of knowing, and there's a dance that happens between intellect and the kind of emotive quality of being able to do it. And when I look at that, it's kind of a tour de force of all these things kind of firing at the same time. He was, one of the greatest portrait painters that America has ever produced. So it's like, what do I think about when I look at the Mona Lisa or something? It's a small gem of a lot of information that I'm able to sit there and kind of dig and dig and dig. And it's similar for many of these. There are different aspects that make them just stunning works of art. So hopefully that answered your question. I don't know if it did. And probably not. Let's try one more. Yes, Amy.
Michael, are all of the artists that are represented here classically trained, or academically trained, or does the Barletta family in question have any precedent or mandate or tradition about training?
No, not at all. So definitely this group of artists that I curated is heavily influenced on more of a quote-unquote kind of academic foundation, I guess. They're actively participating in the tradition and actively saying something new and relevant today. Laura, from what I understand and how she operates, she buys things because she loves them. So her reaction to my painting the first time that she saw it was it was her kind of gut instinct or her intuition that led her there. I don't think she particularly cares where people study or what tradition they come from. For her, it's kind of a fascination of the object and the one of a kind, kind of this ability to be able to do it. It's a little bit of the fascination of the technical component too, that is kind of the awe factor that pulls her in. So the classical academic kind of outlook on things, I would say, is a little bit more prevalent in this grouping, because I think that these artists are intentionally trying to pursue the good, the true, the beautiful, whatever you want to extrapolate from that. I think that they're intentionally trying to connect into something that's been done and pivot and say, I want to give my own interpretation of this. I find that to be fascinating, but I want to do something uniquely my own. And so all of these artists, I think, you could say, were operating in that kind of mentality. At least from what I think. I could be wrong. But so once again, okay, well, one more. Yep.
Is that painting of yours that she was so attracted to in the beginning, is it in the museum?
It's not currently. It was in the first rotation, but it's not. So unfortunately not. There is a magazine that has a reproduction of it down in the gift shop that you can see. So yeah.
Which one was it?
It's a painting of my wife leaving our apartment in Inwood Heights. It was as I was just starting to paint for the galleries.
And go for one more.
Sure.
Any comment and a question?
Mhm.
I've brought a lot of people to the museum, as I know several of us in this room have, and I think there's just something about the way the individuals, you and Laura and Noah, engage the public in this room, in this way that furthers your mission in a way that is could not be articulated on paper. I feel like there's just something incredible that's being
Thank you.
achieved there. I brought an 84-year-old cousin of mine in the other day, and she had traveled the world and been to all these great museums, and she sent me this enormous bouquet of flowers after I brought her here to say, like, thank you for giving this back to me. It was an absolute gem of an experience that I will always remember. And that's pretty incredible.
That's special.
My question is, how do you see the role of the academy aspect of your institution furthering your mission?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I'm very passionate about the museum aspect of as I said early in the talk, it was a dream of mine from the beginning. I went through 7 years of schooling, so I'm totally burnt on anything to do with an academy. But the academy is a strong kind of component of this language being shared with the public. So we want to invite the instructors, the artists that paint these paintings, to share what they have with our following. So it's an opportunity to kind of continue celebrating the technical side of all of this, because when you pick up a brush to try to do it, you realize how difficult it is. And I think that that's the big. It's like cooking or playing piano, or when you do it, you realize just how difficult it is. Cooking can be, cooking we all eat obviously, but are there any Michelin star chefs in the room? It can be pushed to a high degree, and so I think that that's kind of the aspect of the academy, is to, because you really wouldn't be able to talk about this kind of art unless you talked about the technical side of it too. So they really go hand in hand, and it is part of the story of going through the building and seeing that there's these living masters working in this way today, and then seeing them actually doing it on the third floor is pretty special, and it makes us unique in that way, that the two go hand in hand. So. Yeah, so I'm going to close there, but I just want to thank you all for your patience. Thank you for coming. Some of you drove a long way, so thank you. Yeah.